during the presentation to ensure smooth audio. You are welcome to type your questions or comments in the chat box. We will try to address them during the discussion if time permits. At the end of today's session, we will share a Google form with your feedback. We would deeply appreciate if you could take a few moments to fill it out. Your feedback helps us improve further sessions. Now, let me briefly walk you through today's program. We'll begin with the reflection and sharing on the UNESCO Chair in Teacher Education presented by Dr. Rebat Kumar Thakal. Then this will be followed by our main sharing session titled Higher Education 2.0 and Beyond, presented by Professor Chandra Luitel. And then we will close the session with a vote of thanks and closing remarks by Dr. Shesakanta Pangamisa. Without further delay, now it is my pleasure to invite Dr. Rebat Kumar Thakal, co-chair of UNESCO Chair in Teacher Education, to share his reflections on the UNESCO Chair in Teacher Education, highlighting its achievements and present the way forward. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Anusma ma'am. And I welcome all of the participants today. So to take you to a very brief journey into what UNESCO Chair is and what it is doing and what it holds for the future of education in Nepal and beyond, I would be more reflectively recounting on our experiences on the teacher education programs that we initiated with Luitel municipality back in 1997-98. That was the beginning of the UNESCO Chair's journey as well. So it has been a long journey, but at the same time, there are so many ups and downs. Maybe after the first initiative with the teacher quality education project with Luitel municipality, where we trained teachers around Luitel. After that, we also engaged very substantially in one of the multilingual project. I think it was about mathematics curriculum and resource material development, focusing on indigenous communities, Tamang and Gopali communities, and that is one of the core areas of UNESCO's UNESCO broadly and also of UNESCO Chair to focus on multilingualism. And after that, we stagnated for quite some time. And we rejuvenated with newer enthusiasm back in 2021 with some of the initiatives focusing on community partnerships, community outreach through our different centers at the School of Education, like CPEC, that goes with training and community engagement, engaging our graduates, alumni, also in teacher training, school reform initiatives, and also offering micro-credentials, short courses, credited courses. And we also have we also initiated with Research and Innovation Center that also goes to the community, also means industries, ministries for research and collaboration. And that did not stop with the national collaboration, but also international. And very recently, we renewed our UNESCO chairship very recently, and it has been almost around 8-9 months after our renewal. And this renewal, this current tenure will go up to 29. But we have also thought of some bigger picture of UNESCO Chair in teacher education, rather than making it one institution-based, UNESCO Chair. We also are thinking of, expanding its scope into a Category 2 center, which is more of an autonomous center in its own. So to highlight some of the, scope areas that we are currently doing. So earlier, our focus was specifically on teacher education. Broadly speaking, it is the same, but we have now narrowed it down.
Anusmaji, please share from there, because I could not access my email from here just right now. I don't know why. So I've sent it to your UNESCO Chair account. So can you download and project from there, and I'll speak from here. I'm sorry about this. Okay.
Sir, no problem. Sure.
Thank you, sir. So I'm going to quickly brief some of our working areas. That is what the new mandates of UNESCO Chair in Teacher Education is, like engaged learning curriculum, teacher development, innovative pedagogies, continuous assessment, teacher and learner empowerment, ECD, STEAM education, ICT and AI in education, parents and community engagement, inclusive education, higher education and vocational training, sustainable development. So the list is in a way very encompassing, also including public-private partnerships, indigenous and local knowledges, climate change education. So we are expanding these areas. At the same time, we have had some kind of collaboration with the South Asia Research Hub on Inclusive Education, briefly called SARI Network, which generates reliable evidence to inform teaching practice and policy, while strengthening inclusive pedagogy through locally developed technologies and evidence-based practices. So currently, this is working on developing a teacher education-focused inclusive pedagogical courses. This will also be a one course or two courses. It has not been finalized yet, and it will be offered to higher education professionals. And we have adopted a center of excellence approach within the UNESCO chair in teacher education at School of Education, which will spread our focus within the school and beyond. But its overall approach would be developing multiple centers of excellence within the School of Education, beginning with School of Education. So we have now formed a very formal secretariat of the UNESCO Chair in Teacher Education at Kathmandu University, involving chair, co-chair, coordinator, faculty, and research assistants or researchers. And recently we have completed a 1 credit hour teacher training on equality in education. And we are also running 2 research projects at the same time. We are also offering 1 micro-credential on leading green school in collaboration with UNESCO. And we are also working with a few partners to develop collaborative multi-country projects on some kind of applied research focusing on preserving cultural heritage. So we also warmly invite other potential partners whose mission and vision align with teacher education, and we are open to collaboration in terms of research, training, courses, as well as other applied community interventions. Finally, I invite our audience for the very engaged and meaningful participation, critical and thoughtful questioning, as well as thoughtful reflection on the overall presentation that is to come right after. And I thank all the participants also for making time this morning. Over to you, Anush ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Reverend Sir, for your very comprehensive reflection and very nicely presented a presentation as well. Now we're going to move on without further ado. I would like to we're going to start the session. Now,
I happen to just log in. I have asked to join because I'm coming from my dean's account, so not from BC Luitel. So please accept me, and then I can handle from here. Okay.
Sir, हजुरको डिन ओपन गर्नु पर्यो.
Yes. Sorry about this. Sometimes it happens. I don't know why this is happening because this morning, I've been working on my slides, notes since a week or two because I'm writing a paper on this one. And this morning, what happened that this slide disappeared. Suddenly computer was shut down by itself. And then I happened to open again, and I found that it has crash landed. Actually, the page, Microsoft itself was crash landed. So, and then because of which I could not open this one. It is still showing the same behavior. Actually, it has okay. So let me just save it again. it is asking me again, saving again and again, and showing some, I don't know, maybe some kind of viruses or something. But finally, it is coming up. Okay. So anyway,
Sir,
or Anusma. Okay. So let me share from my machine so that it would be comfortable for me. Okay. Let me open. Okay. It is working now. Hopefully, it will work. Maybe because of Microsoft okay, let me just share from here. Thank you, Anusmaji. Thank you, everyone, bearing with me. Okay, entire screen. Let me go from here.
sir, I would also like to welcome you again, Dean of Kathmandu University School of Education and UNESCO Chair himself, Professor Dr. Chandra Luitel, to lead today's session on the topic Higher Education 2.0 and beyond, to address the need of transformation from bottom up. Over to you, sir. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Let me just okay. This is something. Okay, bring back a picture and picture setting. I don't know, something happened. Okay, Anusmaji, I think you should share from there. I'm utterly handicapped today. I don't know why. My screen is showing, but okay. Finally, I think, is my slide visible? Not yet.
Not yet. Screen is visible, but not the slide.
Okay. It should be just give me a moment. Okay, let me just try from here again. Okay, stop sharing. Let me share. So, okay, yeah, finally the struggle is over. Thank you, everyone. Okay, hopefully the slide is visible because I'm on two machines for some reasons. If one crash lands, the other would be intact. Good morning today. Thank you very much for this hassle, for actually, being with us. And let me record this session because, recording privilege is not with me actually. Anusma, you
It is
have
already recorded.
Okay, thank you. Because I'm out of my email address. So anyway, hopefully it will go. Okay, given these all hassles, the session will go. Actually, I'm working on a paper recently on higher education, transforming higher education. Actually, I've changed slightly the topic that was public. Higher education is in a flux in many ways. If you are in this business right now, you have seen COVID, you have seen AI, whatnot, and you have seen the fluctuation in terms of enrollment, disappearing many classical programs and so on and so forth. So this is we are in a context that it is not helping us to understand the way we understood higher education. So in this presentation today, I'm talking about historic and disruptive shifts, and also I'm talking about social relevance. I'm talking about multiple knowledge systems and engaging youths and marginalized communities. So in the purpose of this presentation is to actually raise consciousness within ourselves, within me and as a presenter and other colleagues as well. Now, those who are engaged in higher education. So I might skip some slides as well. I have many slides because as I said, I've been writing a paper, and the paper is already about 10,000 words and beyond, and I'm thinking of doing this one as a book chapter. So let me remind you of this higher education 1.0. I think many of you are aware of this web technology analogy. Okay, 1.0, it's a one-way knowledge flow. So you give information through your website. So in this case, higher education is all about physical campuses, the primary learning space, more lecture-dominated instruction, and students consuming information. And this is largely driven by exam-based assessment. So knowledge production reserved for researchers, not for the students. So the traditional dichotomy, research versus teaching, has been very prevalent in many of the universities, even in our case.
So if you look at the history, this is more like stand-up performance of academic staff with handouts and textbooks where students become passive recipients. So if you look at, after 90s, we call it higher education 1.5, halfway through. This is called massification because of higher education being supported by learning management system, virtual learning environment, blended learning emerges during this time. But again, deja vu all over again, because despite these digital resources, the transmission paradigm remain dominant because LMS, VLES, they are simply used to transmit information. So this is largely the heyday of transmission paradigm of teaching. If you look at Web 2.0 technology, with the rise of several social media platforms since 2004 and beyond, it actually allowed researchers to communicate directly with people, like blogs, wikis, video sharing, social networking. They allow users to generate content, which is different from Web 1.0 technology. So here, then in this sense, we can also imagine students becoming prosumers, meaning that they produce and consume at the same time. And this is largely shift from narrowcasting to community creation, so that it is not just narrowcasting inside the classroom or through web technology that you record, you cast it. So I'm using analogy here. Okay, so it's more of social interaction and collective intelligence becoming more valuable. You can see Wikipedia, so one of the examples, and many other such sources. So if you look, then this is more helping students who are tech savvy. They are using digital shoreline, and that fundamentally challenges traditional higher education models. If you compare these two, so Wave 1 is read only, Wave 2 is read write, Wave 3 is semantic, more now AI. Now we are moving into 3.0 plus. So when we talk about education, then key feature would be transmission consumption to collaboration creation, and next would be personalization and adoption. But of course, there are cautionary notes on this one. So can we call this disruptive innovation? Is it disruptive innovation? Probably yes. Yes. So next would be, so then when we look at this transmission to collaboration paradigm, then a student become creator and not just consumer, more of flipped classroom, more open educational resources becoming commonplace, and crowd contributing content, not just university professors, not just select few people. So, and then student expectations also change. So a student more demand for experiential, social, and image-rich environment, not just textual, very much textbook-ish or research article-centric environment. If you look at around the world, so of course there are challenges as well, but this is the movement taking place across higher education. So, this is actually, we can see in many ways, if you look at writers, what they think that this is, positively speaking, of course, there are caveats as well, that this is more of creating post-colonial transcultural learning zones. So we learn from each other. It is no longer one knowledge system. There is a condition that one knowledge system may not be so controlling. There might be an opening of alternative perspectives as well. So then this is more of open, flexible, and distributed learning. This is, at least at the face value. Of course, there are many opportunities through online and offline, and more formal and informal, both instructors and students, they become active knowledge generator. So traditional educational boundaries are being redefined. This is happening actually. Of course, there are many other challenges as well, which I will explain later. So sustaining or disruptive innovation, is it sustaining or is it just disruption? Okay, is it just disruption? So is Web 2.0 or sustaining innovation, creating incremental changes, or a disruptive disruptive innovation that may drive out the conventional education model or turn it on its head. Of course, the question needs more explanation, but something is happening. Web 2.0 has impacted human, social, and organizational aspects of higher education institutions. Technology integration continue to accelerate and continue to challenge our way of working. If you look at COVID post-pandemic context, then it has accelerated digital transformation. Whether it is good or bad, it is actually accelerating. Everyone is talking about digital transformation. Whether this digital transformation is helping us to bring more, contested voices in the space, that is another question, because the question remains more exploration. Now let's move briefly about Education 3.0. I think the AI frontier, especially from social to semantic. Now, when we look at Web 2.0, of course, its technical dimension is also there. But one of the key aspects of Web 2.0 or Education 2.0 is that it demands collaboration. It demands co-creation by its nature. Okay, 3.0, it is still developing. So, but we have already seen AI, big data analytics, machine learning at core of university operation in many of the universities. They track the students, engagement and shift from memory-based to more of this is the right time for me from a memory-based to more of outcomes-based education. Of course, there are challenges with AI. There are challenges with Education 3.0 because coding becoming the dominant feature of this time. So probably real-time is smart tutoring and analytics are real and they are very, very useful. Who is engaging where? Who is doing what in terms of, provided that they are in the platform. So from Web 1.2 to 1.0 to 3.0, this end signal parallel to transformation of higher education from transmission-based to collaborative to personalized learning. Of course, there are challenges. These authors suggest that the challenges are many, massive, which I'll try to touch upon today. So, but why higher education? Why education at the first place? Why higher education? The question is, what is the purpose of higher education? And what is the purpose in this century? In general, what is the purpose? So I think one of the key goals since the time of the inception of higher education or education in general is that they should, contribute to broader societal transitions. So education should be a catalyst for pluralistic futures, at least in the context of 21st century crisis. Role in addressing socio-ecological crisis as well, because this is happening around the world. Climate change, war, terrorism, so on and so forth. So why not we think of inclusive and socially responsible futures? So then relevance is very important. Then we need to discuss social relevance. Without relevance, we cannot work. We cannot move beyond. So relevance is ubiquitous, and all university missions and supportive structures should embody it. Because without society, how can we run? How can I function? So social relevance is the key. Despite AI and despite ICT, despite 2.0. If we look at the historical reality, this is the title of my paper. So if you look at, I've drawn from literature from African higher education because they are also addressing the crisis of post-colonial context and knowledge systems being marginalized in their own land. So here they shift African indigenous knowledge system because several universities have opted now. Of course, there are debates as well. So this is historical reality because we continue to reproduce colonial knowledge frameworks, whether we accept or need, and not through higher education, particularly through universities, even through schools as well. So we need to deeply look into it. We need to contest it. We need to look for alternatives. But that colonial legacy has contributed to, in many ways, irrelevance of higher education, so that it became disengaged in many third world countries in Asia, Africa, Latin America, and continue to struggle to sustain themselves. Now, if we look at this theoretical model, Beckley and Konas, they talk about these five orientations. One is it has to be substantive. So the what of education, what is the purpose of education, how the education is being delivered, the why teleological, the why of education, procedural, how university govern those three, reaching to people, to reach out to people, and relational, that is the who of education. So how university society connect each other. So this is the case of Africa actually. So if you look at the model, then we move from not just charity. Because we exist because of the society. Human beings are part of social, system. So community engaged experiential learning is very important. Kusud itself has demonstrated to some extent that, the very important part of learning is experiential learning and working with community. So that this model, what we call transformative model, we can CEEL, community engaged experiential learning model. So it is grounded in justice because knowledge is in the community. We need to acknowledge that there is knowledge. We are not just the transmitter, but we are also co-creator. So commitment to critical reflection as an institution, as people, and based on reciprocity, we learn from each other. Similarly, Nakamura and Makapuge and Nakamura, they propose that students need to connect with the community and continuously work with this, what they call sensei approach, where the storytelling comes first, narrative engagement and identity framework as a culturally affirming pedagogy, so that students come to the university, they feel valued, they bring the community knowledge. So these are key elements, culturally responsive, part of culturally responsive approaches, which are to empower the community funds of knowledge as well. So if you look at education, co-creating education with young people in recent studies, of course, 4 or 5 years old study Erasmus, in one of the Erasmus funded project, they actually look at young people's stories of their journey from school to university. So this kind of research also suggests that engaging with youth is very important, because this the population is also shifting in many of the transitional society, that more youth population are to engage with higher education. Of course, there are institutional barriers, for example, the estimation system, student record platforms, quality assurance, fee structures, and so on and so forth. So these are to consider seriously. So how we bring a more, diverse population in the university. So probably the conventional admission procedure, conventional enrollment procedure might not help to improve or transform higher education. So when we look at higher education, university as a lifelong partner, so that the education can no longer confine to a single stage of life. Rather, we develop modular programs, short professional courses, and also more of, stackable qualifications, meaning that we develop different forms of qualification and developing learning ecosystems with multiple entry, multiple exit points. So if we look at then a little bit this idea of Web 2.0 and decolonization, few work has been done. Ekman explained how Web 2 socially oriented knowledge system, or episteme, enables educators to create post-colonial, more meaning-centered educational processes and system. Of course, it has limitations. Digital divide is there, but this is one of the opportunities that we can harness, and it can promote a more egalitarian form of cosmopolitanism, so that learners come together. Of course, they need a certain background, but it is per the analysis, by Ekman, that there are certain limitations, but compared to earlier era, it has contributed to promote more of, pluralizing educational thinking, pluralizing learning system. Similarly, if we look at, indigenous knowledge system in the university, more holistic, knowledge systems and decolonizing curricula, engaging communities in sustainable development, local innovation, cultural pride. These are very important components as well. So this is possible through participatory learning and also acknowledging oral traditions and also place-based education. So when we look at these systems and thinking, then we need to consider this pluriversal ecologies of knowledge. It's not universal, pluriversal. So multiple forms of knowledge, multiple ecosystems of knowledge. So not just the beyond the one world order, one world. So there is not just one world, there are multiple, more than one world. So meaning that we need to recognize pluriversal knowledge systems, different ways of knowing, and diverse ontologies coexist together. Okay, so different knowledge systems. This is very true to Nepal as well. We have 131 language systems, different cultural systems. So our mental models are different. We also imagine, for example, in our context, we cannot just use this conventional objective architectural model. We need more mountain-based, Himal-based, and also probably plain-based models. So IKS is pretty much relevant even in our context. So we cannot remain critique, simply the critique to practice, critique to existing system. We need to move beyond from critique. So we need to look for these decolonial pedagogies, communal learning, post-extractivist knowledge economies, meaning that we often, we have been the modern modern education paradigm is very much extractivist. We extract from nature, and nature becomes hollow, and economy becomes bigger and bigger. But what happens? The cost is, we can see the climate change and the subsequent effect of climate change. So what is the goal of the university in this context? So let's explore for world making practice. It's not just world reproducing practice or world extractive practice. So what kind of world are we going to make? What kind of realities are we going to create? What kind of futures are we going to create? So then in this context, what kind of knowledge systems are we going to? So within university education, what kind of power is going to be being evolved or developed? So one of the challenges is for us is that Western modern epistemology. I don't mean to say that we should replace, but we need to also explore non-Western epistemologies as well. So there are many, of course, many studies have suggested recently that this unequal, if you are to dissolve unequal power relation, we need to contribute in knowledge production frameworks through our own methods and systems. So this is happening around the world. Of course, the number, the participation needs to increase, but this is happening. If you look at journal articles in the last 10 years, if you look at handbooks and other publications, this is happening, but it needs to happen more. Many ways of knowing. This is not just one form of knowing. Indigenous knowledge systems suggest that we know in many different ways, and also diasporic epistemologies. Okay, Times Higher Education also reports that there are epistemologies of science coming into social science, and also vice versa. So this is also very important in the context of multi-inter-transdisciplinary learning as well. So the epistemic pluralism is not just your ornament. They are not peripheral. They are part of production process. So because what happened in 16th, 17th, 18th, even 19th, even 20th century, that university privileged certain form of knowledge while marginalizing others. So we need to actually start working in science, in engineering, even in medical sciences, and also in many areas of social science, and also in management. Many papers have been written recently as per University World News that decolonization effort is also happening in UK as well. In some universities, they have taken up this project. So then we are moving more of post-extractivist knowledge economies beyond market-driven academia. Of course, we need economy, but what kind of economy? Probably stakeholder capitalism is one example. thanks to World Economic Forum, that the then chairperson wrote that book, the Stakeholder Capitalism. You still see. So the critique is that education should not be merely taken as economic productivity, the narrow form of economic productivity. Probably it's more of prosperity. So prosperity orientations are very, very important. So we need to rethink progress, well-being, and human ecological relationships. It doesn't mean that we should kill economy. We should promote economy, but a different form, different versions. So what is then from theory to implementation? So for us, probably we need to recognize diverse knowledge systems, engage students as co-creator. So we need to develop what I use the term. I'm sorry, this is probably this may not sometime is a very jargonistic ontological. Develop ontological literacy, meaning that our mental models are different, our ways of thinking are different. We are pluralistic society, we are plural world as well. So we need to work across these systems. So I think institutions allow to work, more of epistemic pluralism and pluriversal approaches, not universal, but pluriversal approaches. Of course, they should have their merit, they should have their, standards as well, but they can be done in many different. There should be a realization that things could be done very differently, and community partnerships is very important. And also we need to support decolonial pedagogy. I'm not saying that colonialism has always been physical. It has been in many forms. So we need to realize that we have not recognized our own pedagogical model. So we need to look through the frame of decolonial approach. So then I'm coming to an end, of course. Cultivating educational ecologies capable of nurturing multiple, often conflicting ways of knowing and being, because there's not just one way of seeing the world. There can be conflictual way of thinking, complementary way of seeing the world. Okay, so then if we look at the research, critical voice too often missing in the voice of youth themselves. Youth perspectives are constantly evolving across the world. If you see in the form of movement, political change, from 2010, beyond 2010, several movements have been led by youth across the world. So it's not just consultation, it is rather co-creation of solutions, because if we change classroom system and structure, probably youth would be more participated, they become more participatory, and this is the way to sustain our democratic values and futures. So if we look at, similarly, we need to look at marginalization as well. So here is an example, the bringing young people's stories in and outside of school and university who are not part of the process. So here is one work, for example, I think Gravition et al. They work with people within and outside of university, documented their stories, and also, saw the possibilities of bringing knowledge system in the university. Similarly, there are ways to breaking the boundary of invisibility. Of course, there are invisible boundaries between across different ethnicity, caste and ethnicity as well. So Jagiellowski, sorry, the pronunciation. This suggests that we need to work in socially engaged art, systemic innovation, social entrepreneurship, crossing boundaries in education. One thing I missed here, that institutions are very important if we are to, break the boundary of invisibility, because institutions can promote in a larger scale than small groups. So these are some of the strategies. One is support service, inclusive curriculum design, community building, co-creation with the students, and also culturally responsive pedagogy. I think some of these aspects have been integrated in our work at Kathmandu University. So, so these are some research insights as well. So as I said earlier, so the same thing. So these are some areas where narrative could be used as empowerment tools, storytelling, amplifying, marginalized voices, particularly actually So there was another word I forgot actually. Active participation in learning and affirming cultural and personal identity. So identities are very important, but isolated, individual identities could be connected with social identities. So how that can be done through some of these approaches as well. The idea is community. Some of our colleagues are working. Even one of the groups is running program in the community, and these are some of the evidences that they have done until last year. Structural barriers, of course, gender, caste, and university. What we need to do, girls and young people who are most often excluded, and supporting them to lead safely, confidently, and meaningfully. One example is MIED 2026 enrollment as well. Dr. Indramani Rai and Dr. Lina Gurung are working to bring the communities in our university system, and I think we are partly successful as well. This is always a process. As I said earlier, technology comes sometimes is equalizer and sometimes it is a divider. So digital inclusion challenges are always there. So digital platforms enable opportunity, but the concern is there. Digital divide could grow if not addressed. Not all students have equal access, and we have also seen in our blended classroom as well. So we need to design intentionally. Yakman suggests that. So learning, these transcultural learning zones and learning platforms need to co-work seriously. We need to co-work seriously in this front. So, and also overall, the idea is that students want more engaging hands-on learning experience. Research suggests that participation in curriculum design leads to better outcomes, and showing how input leads to change, build trust. So, there are the moment is to recognize learning style, ability, speed, or pace of the learner. So research also suggests that young people expect more share in terms of participation, production, co-production of knowledge system. So then faculty and institutional change. So, teachers need to ready and confident for digital and pedagogical transformation. We cannot avoid digital space right now, but how to handle, how to use is very important. So we need digital pedagogy. We also need, AI literacy, and also ethics as well, and also blended learning implementation, and also culturally responsive teaching. They sound oxymoronic, because we are talking about data and culturally, we're talking about AI and culturally responsive teaching. I think this is a big challenge for us. And many of the studies across the world, educators suggest that these two need to address carefully. We need to address carefully. So actually, our institutional change is very, very important, because they carry the scale of change. Individual can change in a small scale, whereas institutions can change larger scale. Probably this is the end of my presentation. So what we need to do, we need to recognize diverse knowledge systems without hierarchy. So these authors suggest that epistemic inclusion, and I also believe that based on my work, our colleagues' work, that this is very, very important. So it's not just transmission, it's co-creation. So students become producer, not just consumer. Students not just listener, okay, not just follower. They contribute, they co-create. And this is happening, many of us would think until 10 years back that no, students don't ask any questions, we just disseminate information. Now things have changed. So co-creating education with young people, this is very, very important. We need to find a way. Probably we need to shun down some of our assumptions, wrong assumptions and beliefs about young people. And culturally affirming pedagogy, centering student and community empowerment. I don't mean to say that culture is religion and so on and so forth. I mean to say that community itself has a culture, and community empowerment is very, very important. And also student support, addressing group-specific barriers as well, because these are real issues, and we need to actually look at across Nepal and probably beyond. Not just charity, but also solidarity, mutual benefit, justice-based community engagement, and also higher education, participation in higher education. So we need to shift the ontology of university to ontology to pluriversality. So meaning that we have more than one knowledge system. We have more than one way of doing things. So we need to prioritize institutionally so that universities prosper, or university prosper means humanity get connected with university. So in that sense, I'm talking about prosperity. So thank you. I thank you for your participation, listening to me. I'm sorry what happened initially. So sorry about that. Finally, I made it. Thank you very much. And this is part of this presentation is based on one of my paper. So whatever comes, I'll share with the community. Based on my writing. This is a solicited paper actually. A group has asked me to write a paper. So. Please post your questions, anything. I'm not that knowledgeable, but I can try to respond whatever I know. And thank you very much. Okay. Thank you for your participation. Once
Thank you so
again,
thank
questions, if there are any, please post. If I was understandable, if I communicate well, I don't know. It was all Ross. Sorry about that.
Thank you so much, Professor Balchandra Luitel, sir, for your insightful and inspiring reflections on transcending the traditional boundaries of education, envisioning a paradigm where students evolve from passive learners into active creators, and where education becomes a true catalyst for a pluralistic future by highlighting the pluriversal approaches. Now, before we proceed, like Sir said, please post the questions on the chat box. At the meantime, I would like to drag your attention to the feedback form shared in the Google Meet chat box. Your responses will be immensely valuable in shaping and refining our upcoming sessions in this series. Now, moving on, I now have the honor of inviting Associate Dean Dr. Sesikanta Pangeni, sir, to share his valuable reflections and offer the vote of thanks and closing remarks for today's session. Over to you, sir.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Anushkaji, Dean, sir, and all participants. Good morning. And namaste to everyone. This is, I think, end of the today's session. So I would like to extend my thanks to the contributors for this session. So most importantly, the background work and then communication, moderating the session, Anushka Kandel. So thank you very much for your contribution for the groundwork and today's moderation. And also the Dr. Rebat Kumar Dhakal, who is serving as a UNESCO co-chair, and also he reflected on the UNESCO chair in teacher education and the ongoing activities at the School of Education. So thank you, Dr. Dhakal, for sharing those all things and then informing this to all the audience today. And the major session was led by Professor Balchandra Luitel, sir. He is also the Dean and the Chair of UNESCO Teacher Education in Nepal at Kathmandu University. So the higher education 2.0 and beyond, very groundbreaking information and knowledge sharing today. Thank you, Bal, sir, for this very good knowledge sharing and then enlightening us in this regard. And also all the participants from different part of country joining this, encouraging us, and then also committing to be part of the network of UNESCO chair at Kathmandu University. So thank you everyone for joining today's this session. And also I would like to finally remember one moment that once upon a time in 2012 to 2014, I guess, I was also the part of UNESCO chair that time as a lead trainer for ICT in education. Actually, we served as a resource distribution training center. And there was a 6 CD package, for teacher training. And those 6 CD packages were delivered by UNESCO Bangkok, and we distributed to 300 schools. So that was a kind of past story. But now our very energetic, I mean very dynamic leader now has brought it into very realistic sense, almost leading the UNESCO chair through the network of Asia Pacific region, I guess. So hope we will all enjoy being part of this UNESCO chair at Kathmandu University School of Education. All of you are always welcome to be part of this, share the knowledge, expertise, whatever level or whatever extent you would like to serve being a part of this network. Thank you once again. And also, I would like to request all of you to be attentive and join upcoming sessions that will be announced by the UNESCO chair at our school. Thank you, Anushkaji. I think this
There
is
are
the
two
end of.
questions. Thank
Oh,
you.
okay.
Two questions
If
I
there
just want to respond. Idea to include who are out of access to university. I think there are many ways, Sanjay sir. One is micro credentials, short course. Through there, we can, provide opportunities. Also, there can be support mechanism that we can develop that, like those who are not completing school education. Kathmandu University, actually, once upon a time, we started that initiative, and we work with municipalities and communities as well to address those gaps. That is one way. The other is, Praveen Darai, you have asked why culturally affirming pedagogy, why not culturally? I think the words, of course, culturally sustaining word is a bit tricky. So affirming, I think it's more inclusive, sustaining what sustains and what's not. And we don't want to, go into that debate whether one sustains, the other is not. So I think all cultures should sustain, but affirming is very, very helpful and empowering. If there are any other questions, thank you very much for these questions.
Arjun Jong Ramaji sir has written one question.
Can you read it out? I could not
Yes, sir.
see. Look,
Yes,
please.
if all knowledge systems are considered equally valuable in a pluriversal approach, how can educators or policymakers resolve situations where different knowledge systems offer conflicting explanations or solutions to the same problem? This is what he has written. And one more question, sir. Over to you, sir.
Okay, I think, this is what we think oftentimes, that there should be one single answer of everything, and there are
Right.
many different models and ways that one problem can be solved differently. Of course, we can use one at a time, but without negating the other. Okay, so it doesn't mean that we should exclude the other and focus on one. Okay, so what I'm using these two words, one, the other. So I think we need to bring complementarity in thinking in our wisdom to solve any kind of social or any other problems. So that's what I would like to say. Rather than having one single framework, let's think of other frameworks as well, not just one framework. There can be multiple frameworks. Become aware, not just ignorant. Having one single framework, meaning that we become ignorant. We might use one, but we may be aware of many. So that's the difference. There is a difference between being being literate of one framework, or desiring to have one framework, or desiring to have one framework but realizing that there are other frameworks. These two approaches are different. That's what I mean to say. Yes. So any other questions? No questions, I suppose, for today. I'll share slides. I won't share.
There is
I'll
one
share
question, sir.
Yes, please. Kaya? Yes, sir.
Ishwar Kumar Gimiri, sir, has posted.
Okay, Ishwar Kumar. Okay. Professor, I am interested in learn CEI modality shifting from charity to solidarity. How can it be enhanced or incorporated in higher education as our culture? Okay, I think what I mean to say that it's charity. I'm giving some alms to some people. This is charity. I'm doing this community for the sake of goodness. Solidarity is different. It's a shift. It becomes part of system, not just individual. If individuals do, it is charity. But if system does, it is solidarity. Goes out to the community, solve the problem. If there is a problem of mudslides, so probably we engage in that community. So we try to solve those problems. So this is more of solidarity point of view. So see, I think it's more of collaborative experiential learning where community becomes the lab, just like science lab. Our sustainable development colleagues, Dr. Parva Dungana and Dr. Suresh Gautam, they have actually proposed that community becomes the lab. One Gaon Palika become the lab in itself, so that we study flora, fauna, and socio-economic context, and also human nature connections as well. So I think these ideas are around us, so that we do not do charity, but also the system involves in the process. Okay? So this is what I have to say. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. So we have already closed the session. Thank you very much. Please visit us. So UNESCO chair is not separate from Kathmandu University School of Education. It is part of it. So we are trying to connect with UNESCO's mission, because the mission is very good, excellent, and very useful for the work that we do. So that's why we are part of UNESCO system. And we have been associated with UNESCO, as Dr. Takal, co-chair, my co-chair already mentioned. We have a team actually. There is UNESCO chair unit at the School of Education at Kathmandu University, and there is a coordinator. There are researchers. So Anushma is one of them. And also there are one of the associate deans also looks after this portfolio. And I myself is UNESCO chair since 2022. So the activities are going on, and we were working actually behind the scene. Now we are making it public. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you. Thank you. Sorry about what happened in the beginning. I felt that one computer science professor once upon a time in one webinar could not share his slide, and he ended up sharing his presentation just verbally without having a slide. So it happens. It could have happened in my case, but fortunately, I could solve this problem. Thank you very much. Through your grace. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. With your closing remarks, now we're going to formally adjourn today's series, and we're also going to invite you for the upcoming series that is going to be conducted by UNESCO Chair. Thank you, and have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you.